Hey everyone, Paul Warren here. Today we're going to discuss a very common problem for players at all skill levels, and that is how to play faster on guitar. We're going to deal with that question today and solve that problem. Now, there are tons of techniques that we could look at, but today I'm going to address three very specific things that worked for me, and I guarantee that if you implement these three things into your playing, they will work for you. Regardless of skill level, they will help you improve your speed at guitar playing. Stick around and make sure you watch all three tips because I think number three is probably the most important for players at any skill level, and it really helps iron out a lot of problems in people's playing. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at today, and that is our setup on the guitar. So regardless of whether you're playing electric or acoustic, you really do want to try to have a straight line from your arm through your wrist and your hand as your setup. And the reason I say that is because if you start your setup from an angle, so I'm going to exaggerate it a bit so you can see it. So now I've got an angle going from my arm and my hand. What's that going to do when you're trying to pick through a string? You're starting already with your hand in a down angle like that, and you're not giving yourself maximum flexibility. If you set it with a straight wrist, then you're able to have the flexibility to go back and forth, because I'm talking about wrist picking here. I understand some people are arm pickers. I used to be an arm picker as a kid, did not work well. So we're talking about wrist picking here and keeping a nice straight wrist. And not only does it help us with having maximum flexibility to get through our strings, it's absolutely relaxed and comfortable. That brings up the question though of how in the world am I going to keep it straight the entire time? You know, I like anchoring up here at the top. Don't. I used to try that as well, and what that leads to is, oh, I got a comfortable wrist maybe up top, but then when I get down to the bottom, if I'm anchored up here, I'm at a terrible angle. You don't want that. You want to be able to move your hand up and down the bridge, and there's nothing wrong with the palm of your hand touching the strings as you go down. I want to keep a straight wrist there, 5th string, 4th string, and you can see I'm moving my wrist and my hand as I go through, and I keep essentially the same angle of attack on each string that way, okay? There's no reason at all to anchor one point and think that's going to be best for all 6 strings. It just won't. Okay, lastly, with the wrist angle, one thing that I really want to mention that people do forget is, let me see if I can turn a little sideways here. They assume that if they're playing on the bridge and got a flat wrist and they're lined up with their arm, that now they can pick like this where their hand is actually coming up. That's not going to do it for every type of picking pattern that you're going to encounter. So I discovered that's good for some things, but you've also got to be good at lying flat on those strings and picking this direction, okay? That's going to affect your pick angle. In other words, am I angling up towards me, or am I angling down towards the floor? But I just realized that, man, my hand is rotated out. Even though I thought I was flat on the bridge because I'm touching it, my hand was rotated out. But watch when I rotate it down. There's a lot of space there. So I was doing this sort of picking and didn't realize that I could get right there and be way more comfortable in my approach. So make sure that you really look at that and rotate the wrist down and try it that way. I know it may be very uncomfortable for you because a lot of us have set up a certain way for 20 years, you know. But if you rotate it down and do strict wrist picking like Guthrie Govan or Andy Wood, you will see that it's actually way more comfortable. So it may not be comfortable initially for you, but I have discovered with so many students that once they implement that, it really makes a huge change. Okay, the next issue we're going to discuss is pick angle. You've set up with a straight arm and a straight wrist, and you're fairly comfortable with that. You're lying down on the bridge and or strings. But what about that pick angle? Now, I used to pick years ago with my pick straight up like that. I don't know why. I've discovered that most of the great pickers tend to angle their pick a little bit towards the floor. It's because it allows you to rip through the string easier and get to the opposite side of the string quicker. If I'm set up parallel to the string, you'll hear it hang on it. If I do something like this, I can't get through it quickly, and it's really kind of biting on the string. But if I angle it down a little bit, way more comfortable. I'm even able to accent much better that way too. And by the way, that is something you should do. If you're finding the right pick angle, don't worry about flailing. You know, if you're going to do something where you're tensing up and trying to flail through it, that's not what we're talking about here. You got to find that pick angle that is working well for you while maintaining that straight wrist and arm scenario. So I'm changing the pick angle here. And mine tends to work best about like that, so I'm probably 45 degrees towards the floor or so. And then work on putting those accents in there. You could hear the accents I was putting in there. That way you know you're not flailing through the string, and you're going to be much more capable at synchronizing two hands like that when you're able to put the accents where you want them, as opposed to just kind of hoping that everything syncs up. Okay, this last tip I'm going to cover is probably the most important one to me. It seemed to enable me to play in control and also play much more relaxed. It's called running and walking. So choose a scale fragment. We'll go with that one. So basically what we're going to do is run up the notes and then walk down. So it's essentially a burst, and then you come back down to the fragment. Doing that really paid off and really helped me understand how to be more in control of what I was playing. It was the most important part to teaching me how to relax, because you're playing slowly and you're playing quickly, and you can set it at any tempo. So if you're a really fast player already and you want to get faster, do something where you're practicing this method. Take these three ideas, implement them into your playing, and I guarantee you're going to see results. If you're already a fast player, you can definitely get faster by doing this sort of thing. If you're a beginner, it will work for you, and you'll be able to play longer lines this way and be more in control of them. So make sure to ask yourself these technique questions about, is my wrist lined up and straight with my arm? Am I rotating too much? Should I lie back down? Is my pick angle going through the string at an angle that's really easy for me to get through? If it's hanging up, you need to try something different. As soon as I did the little thing that I mentioned earlier about rotating my wrist back, that made a world of difference, and I never realized that I was rotated just a little bit forward. It makes a huge difference on a little pick stroke like that when you change that level of angle. In the comments, if you have any questions about stuff like that, make sure to ask and I'll be happy to respond. And if you like this material and you want to see more of it, please subscribe. I'm always releasing new videos every day, tips and licks and things like that. So make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.